I just want to say, Elena, maybe you want to run today's meeting. Yes.
I guess
Okay, I'll do it. I'm happy to do it. I think someone kicked off the recording, so and I was the first one to log in. It is Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021. Welcome to SIG Node, everyone. I think our agenda is pretty short today. Sergey, do you want to start us off with the PR update?
Yeah, so again, if you didn't watch what's happening in our branches, there is a link on what we did. So we created a bunch of PRs. Out of those PRs, many of them are just work in progress and or attempts to run some tests. You may have noticed that some tests were failing and been debugging them. So out of closed PRs, most of them are just PRs that were opened for test runs. Plus a couple of rotten PRs. I mentioned them beneath the table. So you want to pick up rotten PR and like maybe one of them performance optimization, another some JSON like security issue. Anyway, out of merged PRs, it's mostly cherry picks of his previous branches or test fixes. Again, because we are in test freeze, this is expected, and we're growing on PRs. This is the update.
Thank you, Sergey. And I just snuck a couple of sort of announcement things on the agenda. So for those who are not following, tomorrow, in theory, should be the 122.0 release. Yay! So for the node burn down update, I wanted to give a big shout out to Dims, who I don't think is on the call, for having worked through the weekend to try to make sure that the containerd serial tests were in a passable state for going to 122 release. So there's a bunch of us that have been working on getting the tests into better shape. And Dim sent an email with some details. But as of yesterday morning, all of the remaining issues in the 122 milestone that were assigned to Node were closed. So we are go on 122, which is great. Any questions about the release or freeze or anything like that? We should be unfreezing by the end of the week, which is exciting. Sounds like no. Next item on the agenda, we have Matthias asking about reviewer and approver things. Take it away.
Hi, SIG Node. It's been almost 2 years since I last joined a SIG Node meeting, but recently I've been joining the SIG Node CI meeting on Wednesday, and I love that place. I love that meeting. I love the people there, and I'm super excited to help them. Unfortunately, we seem to be missing a lot of approvers. I'm just referring to the test, okay? I know there are some general SIG Node approvers, but for the test, we might need some more. So I was saying, okay, why not propose myself and just come here and ask what it would take for me to get these rights only for the 3 tests, to the 3 owner files referring to the tests. So I don't know. I heard from Bob Killen that SIG Node is working on a process to formalize what needs to be done, how to grant permissions, and that you were looking for more like specific permissions instead of like full SIG Node approver, which I'm not requesting at all. So I don't know, maybe Derek or Doug.
Yeah. So for the process you're referencing, yeah, we were trying to crisp up a clear set of requirements, I guess, for a top level approver for the SIG. And that got delayed largely because I went on PTO, and I apologize to Alana for that. My personal view is that a number of folks in the community are already appropriate to elevate to approvers on E2E, particularly those that are driving the CI subgroup. So I would encourage both Alana and Sergey and anyone else to put their name forward. I have seen your work individually and don't have an issue with your reviews in that area. So I would say put a PR forward, and I would encourage other participants in the group to do the same. The list in that branch got out of sync at one point, and so but I think it's great that you're participating, and I encourage you to open the PR.
Okay, I will do.
Yeah, I agree with the Derek, but I feel a little bit sorry for Derek. Just come back from the PTO and then put him on the state on this. So we talk about the final breakout today's SIG Node approval status and have more clear kind of break that into the final grant clarity, I think. But just like because we only have limited of the approval existing, and but also because Derek is on PTO, so we haven't finalized that yet. So we are going to continue. But I totally okay to take out E2E, especially E2E node and the common, basically because both common and node actually come from the SIG node from day one. So basically it's part of the node component. I always will like the part of the node. There's also, if I remember correctly, there's also have like we can break out E2E test. There's another thing for the community. I think the Sergey and Layla both did a lot of work for community and the DIMS. That also can break out for the node. There also have some other things like documentation, and I think can be breakout. Then rest of the stuff we can continue discuss. And also there's the NPD and the said weather. We said weather we already break out. So there's the more things we can break out. And then for the core Kubernetes SIG Node ownership, we also can in the future can define one by one. But right now, yeah, there's no problem. Start from the E2E node and the common folder. Yeah.
So just then to clarify, Alana, you've been leading that CI subgroup. I assume there's no objection on you also opening for that branch. And then Sergey, honestly, I would encourage you to do the same. And if the CI subgroup that's meeting has other participants that they'd want to elevate, I'd look to that group to put forward additional candidates. But I think this is a great step in improving a lot of things.
Yeah, I certainly can't take all the credit. Sergey has been doing a lot of the work and showing up every week. So yeah, I can certainly do that. I know, Don, you also mentioned, I think, the community repo. I think I've had a PR open to add myself to an owner's file there for Node for quite some time. So
exactly. That's exactly what I mentioned that one, because I did also talk to the Sergey about both you two can be that one. And but because we are past the process, we didn't process finally, because this is basically those is the top of my mind, and also NPD and said whether we actually treat it differently. We already have those things going, so that's the top of in my mind. We can break out, but unfortunately we didn't finish the process. Hopefully we can once the direct come back and we can finish the process. But this actually, it is what I tried to propose initially. So since Derek is here and we all agree on the E2E test and the community repo, I think let's just start from those two. Then we continue behind the thing, the existing approval, the top approval, and have the meeting, finish the process and publish to community. So yeah.
Right.
Ben Elder and Aaron Krickerberger also both reached out to me and suggested that I apply for approver and test infra. Are there any issues with that?
No, actually, I was going to raise that. That's the other one that is very useful because it's, for me personally, it gets lost in a sea of notifications, but I know we occasionally have to go through and do that. So I would like test infra to be uniform with E2E node owners. Because you often need to do both. So that's the fourth thing I'd like to see get aligned there, I guess. that sound good?
But Derek, I believe that's more from the SIG test. This is exactly misalignment first created, because so then they have the SIG test. The SIG test goes to there.
Yeah,
so I think the
it's just
SIG
when you
test
want to
has
change
been
the
developed.
arguments for how, when you need to change an argument for how something is launched, you end up touching in there. And in my mind, they go hand in hand. So I think if you have a prover in an E2E node test suite, you should have a prover in test infra. Anyway, these are kind of like the pockets of top level improver that I think, Don, you and I had wanted to work our way through, and happy to do that in this public setting right now. And we can follow up on the rest with the existing improvers when we can get scheduled together. Are there other things we want to discuss on that topic, or are we?
Yeah, I just want to mention that from CI subgroup, we also suggested Morgan to apply for approver, and we just need to follow up with him again and
yeah, he hasn't been active since I think we suggested that, so that may be more of a problem.
Yeah, we need to ask him if he wants to continue, but he did a lot for CI group.
And I'll just use this again as a forum to big thank you to the folks who've helped improve in this space, and we need to keep balancing new energy with existing experience. And so big thank you to Matthias and Sergey and Alana as always. With that in mind, I guess I'm interested to give Adrian the floor if it's okay, because Adrian and I spent some time talking about this KEP that he's been thinking about for a while. And so I don't know, Adrian.
Yes, with the help of Derek and Mrunal, we've been reworking the checkpoint restore KEP during the last few months. And I think we are now at a point where it's ready for additional reviewers, or if everyone agrees, ready to be merged. So the main thing we looked into is how to handle the checkpoint, the images of the checkpointed containers. And the idea which came from the SIG Node meeting is to not use local storage as I implemented it initially, but to use to push checkpointed containers to registry. And to restore a container is we just specify the image in a registry, and then the container engine pulls the checkpoint image from the registry and restores the container from the checkpoint. And the other thing we agreed on is to do the whole thing in small steps. So because my current proof of concept PRs are like 2 or 3 really big pull requests, which are really hard to review, I suppose. So the goal is to start from the bottom now that we have the KEP, and introduce checkpoint restore from the bottom up, first in the kubelet, and once we have it working there, we go to higher levels, depending on what we get also from feedback from the community, how the feature is accepted from people, if they need it more, or if it's too much. And I think this is the high level view of the result of our discussions during the last few months. And I wanted to bring it up here for review, questions, approval, whatever needs to be done at this point now.
So Adrian, I know when we were getting together internally at Red Hat to kind of talk through the use case, there were a number of questions I had pushed back on your internal document that was like, what happens if I have more than one container? What happens if I'm running it in a container, that type of thing. Just quickly looking at the KEP here, did you get those details put into the public doc, or am I missing that wasn't there?
Okay, I hope I did, but let me look.
Because the other, just to capture is I thought in our discussions, we were interested in being able to checkpoint a pod as a first step, but not necessarily restore that pod. I don't know about the broader community, but one area that's of potential interest is around being able to checkpoint a running pod for later forensics to understand what was happening on that system, which conceptually would be able to let you checkpoint a running application, stick the state of the application in some image, and then later, even potentially outside of Kubernetes itself, you could run from that checkpoint to see what was going on. And that was interesting from us from a forensics standpoint to work through some use cases like that. I was curious if there are other lower level use cases across the community that people might be interested in where just basic checkpoint without restore might be useful. And hopefully that was captured in your updated text.
Yes, it's all there. I just had a look. It's definitely the updated version. Should be all there.
I think Derek, the particularly interesting use cases that's fulfilled last time. I think last time also the concern came from you and Manu, because I think that we do think about this as checkpoint and restore feature is useful, but there's the concern it is we only doing the node level, right? And we are not involved with the cluster level things. I think that the concern came from particularly
transparent on like the use case that I'm interested in being able to facilitate or think through as one basic one is a cluster administrator can checkpoint an application without the application being aware that it was checkpointed, and then potentially reconstitute that application in a sandboxed environment, even potentially outside of Kubernetes. So you can imagine a flow where I could checkpoint an application by going to the node, saying checkpoint the thing, getting the state captured in an image, pushing that to a registry, and then running a different CRI/CTL command or just a podman run command, I don't care what you run, to rerun that app to maybe do forensics on it. So that's a very useful security flow, which alleviates the need to do restore in that running cluster, which is not, at least from my perspective at Red Hat right now, a near-term priority versus wanting to understand in like a security situation if someone has penetrated a system. And so that is where I know Mrinal and I were very interested in understanding a first step for checkpoint at a very low level use case.
Totally. Yeah. I agree with that. So I do think about there's Manu, go ahead, please.
No, so and also Don, like this allows us to kind of figure out any issues at the lower level, take an incremental step, and then build on top of it.
Totally. I agree, because last time I do think about there's the value even without the cluster lifecycle orchestration for the debuggability reproduce the production issue, but I didn't come up with security use cases. So I'm glad. And we reach agreement even without cluster level orchestration, all those kind of integration. Actually, the feature only on the node side, there's some use cases, not just limited on the debug and reproducible.
Yeah, so I think what we at Red Hat would be interested in understanding is if there's others in the industry who would be exploring or interested in exploring similar forensic analysis about if someone penetrated a Kubernetes cluster and was doing something with your pod that you weren't expecting. Do you have similar use cases where you'd want to be able to detect that without the user inside that pod seeing it happen? And so checkpointing and being able to do analysis is that use case that's of midterm interest at Red Hat. And maybe there's other use cases around checkpointing that we hadn't captured that would also be beneficial, but that was the primary interest one.
Cool. So I hope the type update with all those use cases there, so will be make the discussing easier with the community, rest of the community. Okay.
So I guess as a practical standpoint, Adrian, I think the low level use cases, it required a checkpoint operation in the CRI.
Yeah.
And from a goals perspective, I guess just to make sure, is that something you had wanted to push in the 123 release as a thing that we can unblock? Because right now we didn't have an experimental section to place that checkpoint call, even though I know you've done some prototyping, but I guess from my perspective, I'd like to see us be able to make incremental progress on this in 123. So if folks can review the latest updates to the CAP, in particular around checkpoint a running pod, and ignoring the restore part, if others see value in that, it'd be great if we can get a collective set of us together to work on that.
Yeah, I think that sounds doable for the next release, the checkpoint only implementation, because I think it's actually not much required on the kubelet side to get this working. Most of the work is done in the container engine to do checkpointing, and the kubelet would only trigger it. So,
and my memory on this, if I was right, Adrian, is in your prototype, the kubelet flow is to freeze the pod level C group, right? And then afterwards you can interact with the runtime. Or am I?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, so I think maybe the CAP can be updated, Adrian, to reflect that flow, and then yeah.
Yeah, I think I didn't. I just updated it for the more general questions, but I can update the CAP to mention this forensics workflow and highlight that we want to introduce only the checkpointing in the first step, and also make sure that I included it in the user stories, because I'm not sure if I go over it right now that I have done the user stories update, but I can do that, and then I can highlight it on the Slack review channel when I've done it. Would that work?
Yeah, and you can also send a mail to the SIG Node mailing list.
Oh, okay, yeah, I've seen that one. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask you one thing? Why we are so keen only on the checkpoint? I try to make sure I understand. So basically, the most change is on the container runtime side, or even we can think about the even lower side, RunC can do most of the work, right? So basically today RunC already support within the proper kernel and within proper RunC version, then you basically already can do the checkpoint and the restore. So what we are doing here is just hook to make sure we can send the signal freeze of all the pod within that pod, all the related of the container, and do the checkpoint. And but without restore, so you think about it, once we have that checkpoint, and anyway we have the container runtime can do download those checkpoint and restore those container and run the thing. So that's why the cover the use cases always. I just don't understand.
There was a bunch of issues just on checkpointing alone, where it was like what content was included in that checkpoint, or secret content included in that checkpoint or not. And then if there were multiple containers in an application and those containers use storage, was there a particular nuance around restore that one had to be concerned about? The big issue, Dawn, for restore that Renal and Adrian and I saw when talking through was we have, you almost want to be able to say, when you restore a pod from a checkpoint, the images your container specs reference are not the same as your first pod that you wrote. And so some of the because you have to restore from the archive essentially. And having a way to message that down through the pod spec to say that only on first run of this pod, you use this container image, but not on restart boundaries and that type of thing, were details that we wanted to basically defer, because we saw a lot of value in just being able to ask the kubelet to do the freeze and get the checkpoint state in the interim for security tooling.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
I can also what the value add from the cap is basically so currently Runc can do the checkpoint, but the container engines are the container engines are currently not able to handle checkpointing containers which are running in a pod with shared namespaces. So that doesn't work. So the value add is basically that we agree that we want to add it to the CRI API, and once it's in the CRI API, I can do the work in the container engine to do the implementation based on this. So from my point of view, the main value add is to decide that we want to have it in the CRI API, and I can continue to work there.
I totally get what you say. I just earlier just wondering why because I think about once you want to restore, you may change some checkpoint. You found, okay, certain things you may be missing to properly restore. So that's why I feel like, oh, we just checkpoint, but without restore, we may don't have the right API. But with the direct explain, I also think more. I realize actually we don't really this is enable us to move forward. And anyway, this is not on the pod API, not the pod spec. So it's not a concern, because my concern originally, if there's something bump up to the pod spec or whatever things, and the API have to be solid, have to be end to end. So I worry about we have the half cooked API.
Yeah.
Actually,
it was hard to reason through that, particularly with init containers, because you'd want to restore from the status of that init container having already completed. And there's a complexity there to reason through versus more basic use cases of I was running a stateless application and I wanted to understand if it was had an issue from a security attack standpoint, and I checkpoint it, and then I can go launch it in my other container runtime of choice, even outside of Kube. I think that is very valuable.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for the feedback, and then I will update the cap and let everyone know. Thanks.
Sure. So this is one of these hopefully currently is targeted for 1.23, right? So we will try. And there's a couple other type. Sorry, do you have any question on this one? All of a sudden I realized maybe we need to talk about 1.23 cap candidate.
Yeah, I think maybe, Dawn, do you want to do that next meeting?
Next week?
Cut
Yeah,
122.
good.
Cool, I'll put it on the agenda.
Yeah, someone just pinged me about user namespaces, and that reminded me of 120.
Yes. Yeah, someone pinged me on the container notifier, so that's why I said, oh my God, this one we need to follow up.
I think just overflow from 122 is around 10 caps already. So adding more will be quite a challenge.
Yeah. I think that we should be careful. I mean, based on, we kind of did a retro, I think, at a previous node meeting. I'd like to be careful that we don't overcommit because I saw like we were pretty stretched thin in terms of like reviewing and approving resources. And also I, if possible, like to avoid again, like everything all landing the day of code freeze. I think we really need to stagger it because it ended up like me and Dims and Clayton and few others like spending, the entire 4 weeks of code freeze just chasing down like serious broken tests. Danielle found a really big bug as well. So, and that was really, really hard to try to pinpoint where the breakage started because everything landed the same day. So, yeah, I think let's not try to do too much, and let's not all do it the last day, I think is what I'd advocate for.
All right, cool. So we'll do that next week. So if folks have particular topics they want to bring forward, let's do that. And I think I liked how we handled this the last couple releases. So hopefully we can continue that going forward. But anything else that we want to discuss? Otherwise, we can give people back their half hour. I will appreciate it as I continue to catch up from the hole I've dug by being out. But
yeah, I put a note in chat. There are no additional agenda items, so unless someone has a last minute thing, we can call it.
Awesome. I also believe there's probably a couple weekly meetings that were recorded, hopefully while I was away, that I didn't see. I will work to get all of the latest updates on the YouTube channel this week. So appreciate the patience. Bye.
Welcome. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye, folks.